16-year-old Bora Kim kept her gaze fixed on the worn-out floor tiles as she navigated the bustling corridors of Gangnam High. Her petite 160cm frame, accentuated by thick-rimmed glasses and a cascade of dark hair she constantly tucked behind her ears, allowed her to blend into the background, a shadow in the vibrant tapestry of high school life. She preferred it that way. With her mother's career as a diplomat necessitating frequent postings abroad, Bora had learned that anonymity was the most reliable form of self-preservation. What none of her new classmates at Gangnam High knew was that Bora had been immersed in the rigorous disciplines of Taekwondo and Hapkido since the age of 8. Her father, a former member of the ROK Marine Corps, had insisted she master self-defense after a concerning incident at their apartment complex when she was a child. 8 years of relentless training had forged her into a formidable force, a silent storm disguised as a quiet scholar. She possessed the ability to neutralize assailants twice her size in mere seconds, but Bora had made a solemn vow to her parents. Her formidable skills were reserved solely for moments of genuine peril. Gangnam High, a sprawling complex of concrete and glass nestled in the heart of Seoul's affluent district, housed nearly 1,800 students from diverse backgrounds. Its social hierarchy was a brutal, clearly delineated landscape, with the popular elite reigning supreme from their perch in the senior wing. Bora had been attending for 3 weeks, successfully maintaining her low profile by eating lunch alone in the quiet library, choosing circuitous routes between classes, and speaking only when directly addressed by instructors. The school's undisputed sovereign was Ji-woo Park, a 17-year-old senior with meticulously styled hair, an array of expensive designer clothing, and a cruel streak as wide as the Han River. Her inner circle comprised Sua Lee, an athletic girl with a razor-sharp wit, and Hyejin Choi, whose family's considerable wealth seemed to grant her immunity from consequence. Together, they orchestrated the social order through intimidation, public humiliation, and calculated malice. Bora's carefully constructed invisibility began to fray on a somber Tuesday morning in late October. She was hurrying to first-period Korean literature, arms laden with textbooks, when she inadvertently brushed against Sua near the lockers. The contact was negligible, barely disturbing Sua's perfectly applied makeup, yet the reaction was explosive. "Watch it, country bumpkin!" Sua snapped, her dark eyes flashing with disproportionate fury. Several students paused, sensing the imminent drama. "My apologies," Bora murmured, adjusting her glasses and attempting to continue toward her class. "Apologies?" Sua repeated, her voice escalating. "Do you have any conception of how much this outfit cost?" She gestured dramatically at her pristine designer jacket. Bora's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she forced herself to remain composed. "I offered my apologies. It was an accident." "An accident?" Ji-woo materialized beside Sua like a predator sensing weakness. "Look what we have here, girls. The little bookworm believes she can simply collide with people and walk away." Hyejin completed the triangle, effectively pinning Bora against the lockers. "I don't think she grasps the pecking order around here," she added with a saccharine smile that failed to reach her eyes. Bora felt her muscles instinctively tense, her body registering the threat assessment: 3 aggressors, confined space, multiple escape routes compromised. Her training automatically began calculating angles and vulnerabilities, but she compelled herself to breathe slowly and maintain a passive stance. "I truly need to reach my lesson," Bora stated quietly, attempting to step around them. "Lessons can wait," Ji-woo declared, placing a manicured hand on Bora's shoulder to halt her. "I believe you require some instruction in manners first." The hallway was now filling with students, forming a loose circle around the confrontation. Bora noted how many averted their gaze uncomfortably, but made no move to intervene. She recognized the familiar pattern from previous schools: bystanders who preferred to witness another's suffering rather than risk becoming targets themselves. "What's your name, bookworm?" Sua demanded. Bora. Bora what? Kim. Jiwoo's lip curled into a sneer. Another scholarship student, I presume. You types always forget your place around here. Bora's hands clenched involuntarily at the casual dismissal, but she maintained her composure. She'd heard worse at other schools. The key was not to react, not to grant them the satisfaction they craved. I seek no conflict, Bora said firmly. I merely wish to proceed to my lesson. But conflict found you, Hyejin sing-songed, and we haven't decided if you've absorbed your lesson yet. The harassment persisted intermittently over the ensuing weeks. Bora's textbooks would mysteriously vanish from her locker, only to be discovered soaked in water in the girls' restroom. Anonymous notes were slipped into her backpack, scrawled with insults that made her cheeks burn. During lunch, if she dared to sit in the cafeteria, kimchi would accidentally spill near her table, or someone would jostle her chair hard enough to make her drop her tray. Bora endured it all with quiet dignity, just as she had at previous schools. Her parents had taught her that tormentors fed on reactions, that exhibiting weakness only exacerbated the situation. She reminded herself daily that this was transient, that high school was merely a brief stop on the path to her true life. But Jiwoo and her cohort seemed frustrated by Bora's lack of reaction. They were accustomed to tears, pleas, or angry outbursts that would justify escalating their torment. Bora's calm detachment only fueled their determination to break her. The situation reached its zenith 3 weeks before Chuseok. Bora was working late in the quiet library on a research project when she finally packed her belongings at nearly 5 o'clock. The halls were mostly deserted, with only a few students lingering for after-school activities. She was walking toward the main exit, her backpack heavy with books, when she heard familiar laughter echoing from the direction of the gymnasium. Bora's stomach dropped as she recognized Jiwoo's distinctive giggle, followed by Sua's harsh cackle. She quickly altered her direction, hoping to avoid them entirely, but the sound of quickening footsteps behind her confirmed her worst fears. Well, 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 Jiwoo's voice carried down the empty hallway. Look who's attempting to vanish. Bora kept walking, hoping they would lose interest, but the footsteps quickened behind her. Soon she found herself surrounded near the Hall of Fame, with Jiwoo directly in front of her and Sua and Hyejin flanking her sides. Going somewhere, little ghost? Sua asked with mock sweetness. Home, Bora replied simply, adjusting her backpack straps and searching for an escape route. Not so fast. Jiwoo stepped closer, invading Bora's personal space. We've been attempting to engage you for weeks, but you keep fleeing. That's impolite. Bora's training activated automatically, assessing threats and calculating responses. Jiwoo was approximately 10 centimeters taller and 10 kilograms heavier, but soft from a lack of real physical activity. Sua possessed muscle from sports, but poor balance and coordination. Hyejin was the least physical threat, but positioned to block the nearest exit. What is it you desire? Bora asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. Respect, Jiwoo declared dramatically. You glide through this school as if you're superior to everyone else, as if you don't have to abide by the same regulations as the rest of us. I believe myself no better than anyone, Bora said honestly. I merely wish to be left alone. But that's not how it functions here, Sua chimed in. Everyone has a place in the social order, and your place is the lowest. Hyejin nodded enthusiastically. We're merely clarifying your position. Bora felt a familiar calm washing over her, the same centered feeling she experienced in the dojang when facing a challenging opponent. Time seemed to slow as her senses sharpened, absorbing every detail of her surroundings and her opponent's positioning. I understand perfectly, she said quietly. You three are insecure bullies who elevate yourselves by crushing those who cannot retaliate. The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. Jiwoo's perfectly made-up face flushed crimson with anger, her composure cracking for the first time. "Excuse me?" she hissed, stepping even closer until she was inches from Bora's face. "You heard me," Bora replied, no longer attempting to appear meek. Something had shifted inside her. A boundary had been crossed. "You are pathetic," Suar gasped audibly. "Did she just call us pathetic?" "I believe she did," Hyejin added, her voice rising with excitement at the prospect of escalation. Jiwoo's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You insolent brat, do you have any conception of who you address?" "Three individuals whose peak was high school," Bora said with deadly calm. The slap came without warning. Jiwoo's right hand whipped across Bora's left cheek with enough force to snap her head to the side and make her glasses slide down her nose. The sound echoed through the empty hallway like a gunshot. For a moment, everything was perfectly still. Bora slowly reached up and adjusted her glasses, her cheek burning from the impact. She could taste blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. "Does that bring you satisfaction?" she asked, her voice eerily calm. Jiwoo looked momentarily taken aback by the lack of tears or cowering, but quickly regained her cruel confidence. "Considerably. Perhaps now you'll learn to show some respect." "Or what?" Bora asked, straightening to her full height. "Another blow?" "Perhaps I will," Jiwoo threatened, raising her hand for another strike. This time, Bora was ready. The moment Jiwoo's hand began to move, Bora's training took over completely. 8 years of muscle memory and reflexes activated like a switch being flipped. She caught Jiwoo's wrist in midair with her left hand, gripping it with enough pressure to make the other girl gasp in surprise. "Stop," Bora said quietly, her voice carrying a new authority that made all 3 girls freeze. "Release me," Jiwoo demanded, trying to pull her arm free, but Bora's grip was like a steel trap. "I warned you," Bora said, almost sadly. What happened next took less than 5 seconds, but felt like slow motion to everyone watching. Bora twisted Jiwoo's captured wrist while stepping to the side, using the momentum to redirect the taller girl's balance, sending her tumbling to the floor with a pained grunt. Suar recovered first, rushing at Bora with an incoherent shout of rage. Bora sidestepped effortlessly, extending her leg to trip the charging girl. Suar's own momentum sent her sprawling into the Hall of Fame with a loud crash that sent awards scattering across the floor. Hyejin, seeing her friends taken down in seconds, turned to flee. She made it exactly 3 steps before Bora's hand clamped down on her shoulder, spinning her around. A single finger pressed against a pressure point in Hyejin's neck made her knees buckle, and she collapsed to the floor, conscious but unable to move. Bora stood in the center of the fallen tormentors, her breathing still completely even, her posture balanced and ready. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 10 seconds, and she had barely broken a sweat. "I sought to leave," she said, addressing all 3 girls who were now looking at her with expressions of shock, fear, and growing comprehension. "I sought to ignore you. I sought to be unseen. But you denied me." Jiwoo was slowly sitting up, one hand pressed to her lower back where she'd hit the floor. "What in the hell are you?" she gasped. "Someone you gravely misjudged," Bora replied simply. She reached down and picked up her backpack, which had fallen during the altercation. "I've trained in martial arts since childhood. My father was special forces. I could have rendered all 3 of you incapacitated without effort." Suar was pulling herself up from the scattered trophies, a small cut on her forehead where she'd hit the glass case. "You're insane," she whispered. "No," Bora corrected. "I am disciplined. There is a difference." She looked at each of them in turn. "You wish to know why I've been avoiding you? It's not because I'm afraid. It's because I was attempting to protect you from yourselves." Hyejin was still on the ground, tears streaming down her face as sensation slowly returned to her limbs. "My limbs. I can't feel them," she whimpered. "Temporary," Bora assured her. "Sensation will return in a few minutes. I struck a nerve point, not your spine." The sound of running footsteps echoed down the hallway as Mr. Park, the security guard, rounded the corner. He stopped short at the scene before him. 3 popular girls in various states of dishevelment and injury, with Bora standing calmly in the center, holding her backpack. "What happened here?" he demanded, his hand moving instinctively to his radio. "They attacked me," Bora said simply. "I defended myself." "That's a lie." Ji-woo struggled to her feet, her perfect hair now a tangled mess. "She attacked us. She's some kind of combat maniac." Mr. Park looked skeptical. Bora was still standing exactly where he'd found her, showing no signs of aggression or agitation. The 3 other girls, meanwhile, were clearly the ones who had taken the worst of whatever had happened. "Miss Kim," he said carefully, "I'm going to need you to accompany me to Principal Lee's office." "Certainly," Bora agreed. "Shall I await their recovery, or will someone else assist them to the nurse?" Her calm cooperation seemed to confuse Mr. Park even more. Most students involved in altercations were either still aggressive or upset. Bora appeared completely composed, almost serene. "I'll call for additional assistance," he said, speaking into his radio to request backup and medical evaluation. As they waited, Ji-woo continued her protests. "She's dangerous. She could have killed us. She needs to be expelled." Bora remained silent, knowing that anything she said would likely be used against her. She'd been through this process before at other schools, though never quite like this. Principal Lee was a tall, stern woman in her 50s who had been running Gangnam High for over a decade. She'd witnessed every type of student drama imaginable, but the situation in her office was unusual, even by her standards. Bora sat calmly in one chair, while Ji-woo, Soo-ah, and Hye-jin occupied the others, all still showing signs of their encounter. The school nurse had confirmed that none of them had serious injuries, though Hye-jin complained of lingering numbness and Soo-ah needed a bandage for her cut. "I've heard 4 different versions of what happened," Principal Lee began, "and frankly, none of them make complete sense. Miss Park, you allege that Miss Kim attacked you without provocation." "That's exactly what happened," Ji-woo insisted. "We were just talking to her and she went crazy. She's been trained to kill people or something." Principal Lee turned to Bora. "Miss Kim, what's your account of events?" Bora took a deep breath. "They cornered me near the Hall of Fame. Miss Park slapped me across the face. When she attempted to strike me again, I defended myself using martial arts techniques I've been learning since I was 8 years old." "She's lying!" Soo-ah burst out. "We would never hit anyone." "Actually," Principal Lee said, consulting a paper on her desk, "we have security cameras in that hallway." She turned her computer monitor so everyone could see it. "Would you care to review the footage?" The grainy black and white video clearly showed the entire incident. There was Bora, surrounded by the 3 other girls. There was Ji-woo stepping forward aggressively. There was the obvious motion of a slap, Bora's head snapping to the side. Then came Bora's lightning-fast response, taking down all 3 aggressors in seconds. The room was silent as the video ended. "Miss Park," Principal Lee said sternly, "you just witnessed yourself assaulting another student on camera. Would you care to revise your statement?" Ji-woo's face had gone pale. "It wasn't... she provoked us." "By existing?" Bora asked quietly. "By walking through the hallway?" Principal Lee held up a hand for silence. "Miss Kim, your response was certainly dramatic, but the video clearly shows you were defending yourself against an unprovoked attack. However, I'm concerned about the level of force you employed." "I employed the minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat," Bora replied. "I could have seriously injured all 3 of them if I'd wished. Instead, I used techniques designed to disable without causing permanent damage." "She's a menace," Hye-jin finally spoke up, her voice still shaky. "What if she decides to attack someone else?" Bora turned to look at her. "I've been attending this school for over a month. In that time, have I shown any aggression toward anyone? Have I started any fights? Have I threatened anyone?" Principal Lee consulted Bora's file. "According to your records, Miss Kim, You've never been in trouble at any of your previous schools. No disciplinary actions, no complaints from instructors or students. Because I don't start fights, Bora said simply. I end them. The principal studied the four girls carefully. Miss Park, Miss Lee, Miss Choi, you are all suspended for 3 days for assault and bullying. When you return, you will be required to attend anger management counseling and complete community service hours. What about her? Jiwoo demanded, pointing at Bora. Miss Kim will not be suspended, as she was clearly acting in self-defense. However, she turned to Bora, I strongly recommend that you consider channeling your skills into something more constructive. Have you thought about joining the Taekwondo club or helping with their classes? Bora felt a genuine smile cross her face for the first time in weeks. I would be honored. As they left the principal's office, Jiwoo made one last attempt at intimidation. This isn't over, she hissed as they walked down the hallway. Bora stopped and turned to face her. Yes, it is. And if you or your friends ever touch me again, my restraint will disappear. The quiet certainty in her voice made all three girls take an involuntary step backward. Word of the confrontation spread through Gangnam High like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew that the quiet new girl had single-handedly taken down the school's most feared bullies. The story grew more elaborate with each telling, but the core facts remained the same. Bora Kim was not someone to mess with. The changes were immediate and dramatic. Students who had never spoken to Bora before bowed respectfully when she passed in the halls. Teachers looked at her with new interest, particularly the physical education instructors who began making subtle inquiries about her training background. Most importantly, the culture of fear that Jiwoo and her crew had created began to crumble. Bora found herself approached by students who had their own stories of bullying and harassment. Some wanted to learn to defend themselves. Others just wanted to share their experiences with someone who understood. For the first time in her academic career, Bora felt like she belonged somewhere. The Taekwondo club, which had been struggling with low membership, suddenly found itself overwhelmed with new applicants. Bora became an unofficial instructor, teaching basic self-defense techniques to students who had never imagined they could protect themselves. 2 weeks after the incident, something unexpected happened. Bora was eating lunch with her new friends from the Taekwondo club when Jiwoo approached their table. The entire cafeteria seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen. Can I talk to you? Jiwoo asked quietly, looking genuinely nervous for the first time since Bora had known her. Bora studied her for a moment, then nodded. Okay. They walked to a quiet corner of the cafeteria, far from listening ears. Jiwoo fidgeted with her designer handbag, clearly struggling with what to say. I want to apologize, she finally said, the words coming out in a rush. For everything, the slap, the bullying, all of it. It was wrong. Bora waited, sensing there was more. I've been thinking about what you said a lot, Jiwoo continued. About us being insecure and our peak being high school. And you were right. I've been so focused on being popular and feared that I forgot about being a good person. What made you change your mind? Bora asked. Jiwoo looked embarrassed. My younger sister. She's in middle school and she asked me if it was true that I was a bully. Hearing her say that word, she shook her head. I don't want to be someone my own sister is ashamed of. Bora felt her anger softening slightly. Power doesn't have to mean cruelty. I know that now, Jiwoo said. And I know this doesn't make up for everything I've done, but I want to be better, to do better. It's a start, Bora acknowledged. When Jiwoo returned from her suspension, she was noticeably different. The cruel comments stopped. The strategic humiliation ended. She still had her social status, but she didn't use it as a weapon anymore. Suah and Hyejin, following their leader's example, also toned down their bullying significantly. The change wasn't just among the former bullies. Other students who had seen Bora stand up for herself started finding their own voices. The silence that had allowed bullying to thrive began to break as more people spoke up for those being targeted. Bora's reputation as the girl who had changed the social dynamics of Gangnam High followed her for the rest of the semester. She was respected not just for her fighting skills, but for how she had used them responsibly. She had shown restraint when she could have caused serious harm, and she had used her abilities to help others instead of seeking revenge. As winter break approached, Bora thought about how much her life had changed since that day near the Hall of Fame. She had friends now, real friends who liked her for who she was, not what she could do. She had found a purpose in teaching others to protect themselves. Most importantly, she had learned that sometimes standing up for yourself meant not just defending your body, but defending your right to live peacefully in the world. The shy, unseen girl who had walked the halls of Gangnam High in fear was gone, replaced by someone who knew that true strength came not from the ability to hurt, but from the wisdom to know when that ability was needed. Bora Kim had finally found her place, and it was exactly where she belonged, standing tall, speaking clearly, and helping others find their own strength. On the last day before winter break, Bora found a card in her locker. It was signed by many students, thanking her for making Gangnam High a safer place for everyone. At the bottom, in handwriting she knew was Jiwoo's, was a simple message. "Thank you for showing me who I could be instead of who I was." Bora smiled as she put the card in her backpack. She had come to Gangnam High expecting to hide until graduation. Instead, she had learned that sometimes the best way to disappear is to stand up and be seen for exactly who you are. Someone who refuses to be a victim, and someone who helps others find that same courage inside themselves.